Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about operations with multi-digit decimals. So we're going to be doing addition, subtraction, and multiplication. This first video is going to be addition and subtraction, and then I'm going to do a separate video for multiplication. When you're adding multi-digit decimals, the most important thing that you have to remember is to line up the decimals. Okay, when you add or subtract numbers with decimals, you have to line them up by place value and then add or subtract appropriately. So when I rewrite this first one, it's going to be 45.16 plus 21.384. And I have to line up those decimal points. So you'll see that the decimal points right here and right here are in line with each other. Okay. What this shows me is that I have to add a 0 next to the 6 to make the place values match. So now I can add. So I'm going to add going from right to left. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. Plus 1 more is 5. And then that decimal comes straight down. 5 plus 1 is 6, and 4 plus 2 is 6. So my answer here is 66.544. I'm going to do the same thing on the next one, so I'm going to line up my decimals. So 356.725 plus 142.4. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to add those two zeros to match up my place values. It doesn't change the value of the number. It just adds the appropriate number of place values in order to add. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 4 is 11. And I'm going to carry the 1. I'm going to bring down my decimal. 2 plus 6 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. 5 plus 4 is 9. And then 3 plus 1 is 4. So 499.125. In the last one, 23.498 plus 14.93. And again, I'm going to add that 0 at the end to match up my place values. So 8 plus 0 is 8. 9 plus 3 is 12. And I'm going to carry the 1. 9 plus 4 is 13. Plus 1 is 14. Carry the 1. My decimal comes straight down in that line. 4 plus 3 is 7. Plus 1 is 8. And 2 plus 1 is 3. So 38.428. Okay, so that is addition. I line up the decimals, put the appropriate zeros in if I need to line up those place values, and then add my digits from right to left. Now I'm going to look at subtraction. For subtraction, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line up the decimals and put zeros in appropriate places to line up my place values. Sometimes you may have to borrow depending on what the number is. So here I'm going to have 32.94 minus 15.386. And I'm going to add a 0 at the end here. The order of these numbers does matter. It's the first number minus the second number. So the first number goes on top minus the second number on the bottom. And now I'm going to subtract. So when I start my subtraction, I have to actually borrow from this 4. Because 0 minus 6 is not possible at this time. So 10 minus 6 is 4. Then I have to borrow again because I cannot do 3 minus 8. So 13 minus 8 is 5. 8 minus 3 is also 5. And then my decimal needs to come straight down. And then on the other side of my decimal, I have to borrow again because I cannot do 2 minus 5. So 12 minus 5 is 7. And then 2 minus 1 is 1. So my answer here is 17.554. In part B, I'm going to do 25 and then minus 17.469. And in this one, I have to add the decimal along with 3 zeros to match up all my decimal places. And in this one, I actually have to borrow all the way across the top number. So I'm going to borrow from the 5 to make this a 10. Then I'm going to borrow from this 10. And then I'm going to borrow from this 10 to make that last 0 a 10. So then 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 6 is 3. 9 minus 4 is 5. Bring down my decimal. I cannot do 4 minus 7, so I'm going to borrow again. 14 minus 7 is 7. And then 1 minus 1 is 0, so I don't have to write it. So 7.531 is my answer. In part C, I have to add a 0, so 356.18 minus 142.257. I'm going to add this 0 to line up my place values. And I have to borrow from the 8. So 10 minus 7 is 3. 7 minus 5 is 2. I have to borrow from the 6. So 11 minus 2 is 9. I'm going to bring down my decimal. 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 minus 4 is 1. And 3 minus 1 is 2. So 213.923. Part D is very similar to Part B, where I'm going to have to add a few zeros and then borrow across the top number. So it's going to be 34 minus 9.142. And I'm going to add the decimal and 3 zeros. So I'm going to borrow from the 4, borrow from the 10, borrow from the 10, and then make this into a 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8, 9 minus 4 is 5, 9 minus 1 is 8. Bring down my decimal. I'm going to borrow here, so 13 minus 9 is 4, and then 2 minus 0 is 2, so 24.858. So when you're adding or subtracting with decimals, make sure that you are lining up the decimals, fill in zeros in appropriate spots to line up the place values, and then you add or subtract from right to left across the number. Being sure to carry over anything in addition that is greater than 10, and then borrowing from anything that you cannot subtract for subtraction.